My name is Ariba, and 15 years ago, I opened my front door to find my entire life crashing down on my porch at 3 a.m. I was 26, unmarried for even 3 years when my sister Sana showed up pounding on the door like the house was burning down. She had mascara streaked across her cheeks, a toddler clinging to her hip, and my husband's leather travel bag over her shoulder. At first, I thought something terrible had happened. An accident, maybe, some emergency. I never expected it would be my own funeral. Not a literal one, but the end of the woman I thought I was. "Ariba, I need you to take him," she said, pushing the child into my arms like he weighed nothing. Her voice trembled. He's very sick. He doesn't have much time. Sana, what are you talking about?" I looked down at the boy's face. Sleepy, confused, barely understanding. "Where's Harris?" That's when her eyes shifted. I knew that look. It was guilt masked with urgency. She looked past me like she couldn't bear to meet my face. "Harris and I, we're leaving. Together. We don't want to do this, but we have no choice. This life, it wasn't working for either of us." My breath caught in my throat. "You're what?" Her voice got sharper, more desperate. "I don't have time to argue. He's my son, but you're better at this. You're stable. I know you'll take care of him. He's got a condition. And I can't watch him die. What condition?" I snapped. "Where's his doctor? What do the tests say? Sana, are you even listening?" But she was already backing off the steps. No car headlights. No explanation. Just a duffel bag in the dark, the faint sound of tires crunching down the street, and her final words, "I'll call. I promise. Just keep him safe." And then she was gone. I stood there in the cold, barefoot on the tiles, holding a baby no older than 2. My nephew, Ayan. I don't know when I started crying, but when I did, it wasn't quiet. It wasn't graceful. It poured out, the kind of grief that comes when betrayal is louder than death. In one night, I lost a sister, a husband, and the image of what my life was supposed to be. No warning, no apology. The days after that were a blur. I sat in waiting rooms with Ayan, asking about his condition. But according to every test, and there were many, he wasn't dying. He was healthy. Slightly underweight, some mild allergies, but otherwise, perfectly fine. I waited for days, then weeks, then months. I kept thinking I'd get a phone call or a letter or some legal paper, something. But there was nothing. Not a whisper. Not a visit. Ayan asked questions, of course. "Where's Mama? When is Baba coming?" I never knew what to say. Maybe it made me bitter. But the bitterness wasn't for what they did. The real poison was in how easily they left. How I spent years loving 2 people who discarded me like I was a burden instead of a backbone. Still, I couldn't throw rage at Ayan. He didn't ask for this. He didn't choose to be born to people who would run the moment things got hard. So I wiped my tears, found an old pacifier in one of Sana's bags, and fed him warm milk that night, like I was born to do it. That was the beginning of our story. Not mine and Harris's. Not mine and Sana's. Ayan and I, a new chapter. He didn't just become part of my life. He became my life. And that night, I made a vow I held on to for 15 years. I will protect this boy, even if no one ever comes back for him. That was the last time I saw either of them, until 15 years later. 300 words. Before everything fell apart, I had plans. Real, solid, ordinary plans that felt monumental to me. I was working on my master's in clinical psychology, saving every rupee I could from my part-time counseling job, and mapping out a future I could finally call mine. Logical, stable, slow-growing success. I had married Harris after 2 years of dating. We weren't some whirlwind romance, nor were we wildly in love, but I thought that was okay. He was level-headed, supportive, sweet in public. It felt safe, predictable. I didn't need fireworks. I needed peace. And peace, for a while, is exactly what he gave me, and then there was Sana, my older sister, by just 2 years, but always feeling a decade ahead in drama, beautiful, wild, irresponsible. She'd moved in with us for just a few months after breaking up, again, with whatever man she claimed had ruined her life. She said she needed help resetting, a place where she wouldn't be judged. And I didn't judge her. I never had. Harris didn't seem to mind either, at first. I even remember him joking once. It's like we got ourselves a reality show roommate. I laughed. I always laughed. Back then, I ignored the small things. The shared glances during dinner. The times I'd find them having coffee late at night in the kitchen without me. The way Sana wore Harris's hoodie like it was nothing. She borrowed clothes often. That wasn't new. She borrowed boyfriends before too. That was new, and I just hadn't seen the pattern until it was too late. 3 days before they left, I found a receipt. A hotel room. 2 guests, Harris's credit card. The name S. Ahmad scribbled in the signature line. It felt like my entire body shut down as I stood in the kitchen clutching that receipt. I remember reading it 10 times, thinking maybe there was some other explanation. I confronted Harris that night. He didn't yell. He didn't deny it. He didn't even pretend to feel ashamed. Just that stale line. It just happened. And then my sister, my blood, looked me square in the eye and said, "You would have figured it out eventually." Like her betrayal was some divine mercy, and I should thank her for the early warning. I should have thrown them both out that moment. Maybe I would have, but Ayan was sick that week, or I thought he was. He had a cough, a fever. Sana said she had to take him to a specialist. I thought maybe the stress made Harris cheat. Maybe I was missing something, but the real lie was still brewing. 2 nights later, my husband and my sister disappeared into the dark, and I was left holding the child they said was dying. That was the second death I lived through. After they left, my life didn't crumble, it evaporated. My savings vanished with hospital bills, sleepless nights watching Ayan at 2 a.m., terrified his breath would slow. I dropped out of my graduate program 1 semester short of finishing. I couldn't afford both tuition and formula. The job offers stopped early. Counseling requires calm, and I wasn't calm. I was drowning. I sold the apartment Harris and I had just bought, and moved into a 1-bedroom rental near a government school, so Ayan could go when he was older. Friends stopped calling. They didn't know what to say. I hear that's common. No one knows what to do with a woman raising her sister's son in the shadow of betrayal. And even though I gave up everything, people still whispered behind my back like I somehow deserved it. They didn't see the diapers soaked with fever sweat, the emergency visits, or nights I looked at Ayan and wondered how loving him could hurt so much. But I never gave him less because of how he came to me. That child never once heard a bitter sentence fall from my mouth about the people who abandoned him. I protected him from every truth and every shadow, because his world didn't deserve to be darkened by their sins. 15 years went by like that. Quiet, steady, invisible sacrifice. The kind no one claps for. By the time he was a teenager, Ayan used to ask why I didn't remarry. I'd smile and tell him, "Because I already have my hands full with one good man." What I never told him was that I didn't trust myself anymore. I didn't trust the world. I didn't want to let anyone close enough to do what they did again. Some days I saw a version of that old me, the one with big dreams and a calendar full of goals. But most days, I just kept my head down and made sure Ayan had hot lunch, clean clothes, and dreams he could afford to chase. That was motherhood. Not the kind I wanted or expected, but the kind I fought for, alone. And just when life finally steadied. That letter showed up, a plain white envelope. No return address, and inside just one sentence. "You did better than I ever could. We might stop by soon." At first I called him Beta out of habit. It's what mothers say to their children. It's what I used to call my students back when I worked at the learning center. But with Ayan, it meant something different. It felt fragile. Like if I called him my son too soon, the universe might take him back. After all, his real mother hadn't died. She'd simply disappeared. Ayan was a quiet child during those early weeks. Too quiet. He didn't cry for Sana, not even once. That scared me more than the fever. He would just sit and stare, sometimes at the ceiling, sometimes at nothing. One time I asked him if he was hungry, and he looked at me like I wasn't speaking his language. There were moments he'd reach out in his sleep, whispering "Mama," and I'd sit at the edge of his bed and wonder who he meant. He had night terrors for months. Inconsolable screaming. He'd wake up choking on sobs, clutching my clothes like he was reattaching himself to the last person who hadn't run. Doctors found nothing. The blood work came back clear. The condition Sana had spoken of didn't exist. In fact, once he was in a safe environment, routine meals, stable sleep, his body began to heal rapidly. But his spirit, that's what took the longest, and that changed me. Everything I thought I knew about motherhood dissolved. There's no manual for loving a child who didn't come from your body, just your heartbreak. But I still remember the first time he fell asleep on my chest without crying. His tiny hand gripped my necklace. It was a chain my mother had given me when I graduated high school. "Don't ever let anyone make you small," she had told me. I broke that promise to myself the moment I allowed my sister back into my life, believing I was rescuing her. But Ayan, he made me want to be big again, for him. He started calling me Ami by the time he turned 4. I had never asked him to. In fact, I tried to correct him in the beginning. "I'm not your real..." But he wouldn't let me finish. "You're my Ami. You feed me, sleep next to me, make me laugh." That was the day I stopped separating myself from his story. I wasn't his aunt. I wasn't his babysitter. I was the woman who stayed. As the years passed, milestones became anchors. First day of school, first time riding a bike, first time he got chosen for class monitor. They were all victories. Not because of what he accomplished, but because of what he overcame. Ayan was naturally kind, smarter than most kids his age, and incredibly perceptive. He could sense when I was low. He'd bring me water, make me sit, pull my hand onto his little chest and say, "I'm okay now, Ami." I didn't understand how a child could carry so much emotional weight and still smile so freely. No resentment, no demands. He honored every second I gave him, and in return, I began honoring myself again. While others my age were climbing ladders, traveling, marrying, and upgrading their lives, I was clipping coupons and learning how to cook without burning dal. And yet, I was happy. Not at first, no. At first I was surviving. But somewhere along the line, between bedtime stories and doctor appointments, between scraped knees and birthday cupcakes, I fell in love with a child I hadn't asked for but now couldn't live without. Some friends pitied me. Family members told me I'd wasted my best years. I heard whispers at weddings, saw the pity in women's eyes who dressed better and married richer, but they didn't tuck Ayan in. They didn't hear him sing off-key to make me laugh when I had a migraine. They didn't see the way he hugged me, like I was home. So I stopped comparing. I stopped grieving the life I'd lost, because somewhere in this detour, I found a better version of myself. Not the academic, not the wife, not the martyr. I found the mother. And that woman, she was unshakable. So when that envelope arrived, white and bare and lifeless in its smile, I didn't panic. Just 3 lines written in stiff handwriting. "You did better than I ever could. We might stop by soon." It wasn't a threat, it was a warning. I used to think that grief had a finish line, that once the sharp parts dulled, life would eventually fill in the gaps and I'd just move on. But grief, I learned, isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, lingering, like a whisper you can't trace, always nearby, never fully gone. I returned to school when Ayan was 6. Evening classes, part-time. It took me nearly twice as long as it should have, juggling contract work in the mornings, parenting in the afternoons, and assignments after he went to bed. But somehow I finished my master's, quietly. No one from my old world showed up to clap. But Ayan did. He stood up on the chair in the back of the hall and yelled, "I was the smartest mom in the world." I think a part of me healed right there. We built a life from scraps. I took freelance counseling clients, babysat on weekends, even worked evenings at a small cafe for a year. Anything honest, anything steady. We didn't have much, but we had consistency. Ayan thrived in ways that stunned me. He was curious, gentle, protective. When other boys fought, he diffused. When classmates said cruel things about his missing parents, he didn't react with anger. Just this soft confusion. One day, I found a drawing he made. 2 stick figures under an umbrella. One small, one tall. "Safe," he had written at the top. Even thinking about it now, it still breaks something open in me. He never asked for Sana. Not once. It's like, somewhere inside him, He understood that real love doesn't vanish in the dark. He never even called his father by name, but I did. Silently, every year on Ayan's birthday, their names echoed through my thoughts like a ritual I couldn't break. Did they think of him on his 5th birthday? When he blew out candles on a supermarket cake because we couldn't afford a bakery one? Did they know he won the science fair when he was 8 with a recycled water system built out of 2-liter soda bottles? Did they know he called our tiny rental the Mighty Castle? That he told people I was a superhero, without a cape, but full of magic? I lived with these questions for years. Every birthday it hit me again. The calendar didn't forgive. It was the one day I couldn't pretend they didn't exist. Would they come back? Some nights I'd wake up sweating, thinking I heard banging on the front door. I'd rush to check, heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. Nothing. Always nothing, except in my head. The whispers never stopped. It wasn't just fear. It wasn't just anger. It was waiting, stretched across time like a thread you pretend not to see, but trips you anyway. Still, I smiled through it all. For him, his birthdays got brighter. His clothes fit better each year. I found joy in watching him become his own person. Kind, thoughtful, unshakably loyal. He made friends easily. Teachers adored him, he once told me. I like helping people because you never know when someone's hiding a broken heart. That's when I knew he was more mine than theirs. And yet, some part of me still braced for the moment everything would suddenly change. No matter how far I'd come, that fear sat in the back row of my mind, legs crossed, waiting to raise its hand. And then it did. The envelope. No address. No stamp. Like it simply materialized out of nowhere. 3 sentences. You did better than I ever could. We might stop by soon. Don't be scared. I didn't sleep that night because I wasn't scared. I was ready. It was a gray morning, the kind that whispers rain long before it falls. I was sorting through the mail like any other day. Bills, flyers, coupon books we never use. When I paused. A plain white envelope. No stamp. No postmark, no name. Just my address, written in a thin black pen, like the person who wrote it wasn't sure they should. Immediately my stomach dropped. It felt too quiet, like when the air changes before a storm. I stood in the kitchen for a full minute, just staring at it. My hands didn't want to move. My brain screamed not to open it, like some part of me already knew what I'd find inside. But curiosity slices through fear like a knife through soft fruit. I opened it. No signature, not even punctuation. You did better than I ever could. We might stop by soon. Don't be scared. I must have read it 10 times trying to decipher the handwriting. Thin strokes, almost delicate, like someone trying too hard to seem calm. My knees hit the chair before I realized I'd sat down. It couldn't be anyone else. There was only one person who would claim I'd done better. Only one who had something to feel guilt over. Sana. 15 years. No word, no contact. Ayan had stopped even dreaming about her by now, and I had worked so hard to kill any trace of her ghost in our lives. But she wasn't dead. She was watching. A door closed quietly behind me. I turned to find Ayan standing there, still in his pajamas, rubbing sleep from his eyes. He was 17 now, tall and broad-shouldered, the beginnings of a young man painted across his features. But just then, he looked small again. What's wrong, Ami? I froze. My first instinct was to hide the letter. To say it was junk, but lies rot quietly, and my son deserved better than that, especially from me. So I handed it to him. He read it once, slowly. His fingers trembled slightly, but his face remained expressionless. Then he looked up. Is it from them? I nodded. He didn't speak for a moment, just blinked a few times. Then carefully, he folded the letter and placed it back on the table. She's alive, he said, flat, cold, like it confirmed something. He never really wanted to believe. Yes, and she knows where we live. I think so. He stared out the window for a long time. A breeze stirred the curtains, and for a moment we both sat in silence, listening to the world keep spinning outside as ours came to a full stop. I don't want to see her, he finally said. I know. Do I have to? No, then we're fine, he said, standing up. Let me make breakfast. Just like that. No crying. No yelling. Just this quiet acceptance that she might be real again, but she no longer mattered. Except, I didn't feel fine. Because if that letter meant what I thought it did, they weren't coming to make peace. They were coming to claim something, and I wasn't about to give them anything. It was a Sunday afternoon when they came back, as if 15 years could be folded neatly and shoved into a casual knock on the door. Ayan was in the backyard, trimming the edges of our small garden with headphones in. I was standing at the stove stirring lentils when the knock came. Not frantic, not polite, just assertive. 3 soft knocks, like a rhythm rehearsed in the car outside. I didn't move at first. Some part of me knew. Because that kind of silence behind a knock, that's guilt. That's someone masquerading as brave. When I opened the door, the air disappeared from my lungs. Sana stood there wearing a designer coat I couldn't afford even after 2 back-to-back consulting contracts. Her skin was flawless, hair sleek, face contoured to perfection. Not a wrinkle in sight, not a worry in her eyes. She looked younger than the day she left, and next to her, Harris, my ex-husband. The man who said nothing when she stuffed their toddler into my arms and vanished into thin air. He had aged. Lost hair, gained weight. He clutched his phone like it was a shield, staring down at it to avoid looking at me. For a second, I just stood there, appalled by the sheer audacity it must take to show up like that. Sana smiled. That same snake smile I used to misread as warmth when we were kids. "Hi," she said like we'd spoken last week. "We were just in the neighborhood." I didn't respond. I stepped to the side instead, knowing Ayan wouldn't be far behind me, knowing he needed to see them for himself. Not to explain, but to remember what he'd overcome. Sana saw past me, her grin tightening. Is Liam home?" The fact that she used his name, made my jaw clench. She hadn't earned the right to speak it. "It's Ayan," I corrected. "And yes, he's home. But I don't remember inviting you." Suddenly, the screen door creaked open behind me, and Ayan walked in, wiping sweat from his brow with a kitchen towel. He froze when he saw them. For a long, breathless second, the room went still. Sana stepped forward, arms half raised. "Hi, sweetheart. I know this is a lot, but I've missed you so much." Not a day passed. He didn't move. Didn't even blink. Harris finally looked up, offering a weak smile. "Hey, buddy. Wow, you've grown. I almost didn't recognize." "I don't know you," Ayan said. Calm. Flat. But it landed like a gunshot. Then he looked at me, just once, then back at them. "Who are you?" he asked, voice louder this time. "She's my only mom." Sana's mouth opened, like she was about to cry or explain, or beg. But Ayan turned and walked into the hallway without waiting for a response. I heard his bedroom door click shut. Sana exhaled, like she'd been slapped. "I know this is hard," she said to me, blinking back false tears. "But he needs to hear our side. He needs to know we loved him. Leaving him with you, that was the most loving thing we could do. At the time, the most loving thing you could do," I repeated slowly. "You left your son on my doorstep with no money, no warning, and a lie about some fatal condition." "It wasn't exactly a lie," she said quickly. "He was sick a lot. We just didn't have insurance. Plus, kids get better. You fixed him, right?" My hands went cold. "You weren't just in the neighborhood. You tracked down our address. You left a letter. You've been watching us. Why?" Sana glanced at Harris, then back at me. And now finally I saw it. Desperation. This wasn't about peace. It was about purpose. They were here for something. Before either of them could speak again, I walked to the door, opened it wide, and waited. "You had 15 years, I whispered. "But now? You have 5 seconds." They didn't put up a fight. At least they understood how unwelcome they were. Harris left without a word, eyes on the floor. Sana lingered for a breath, maybe waiting for a flare of sisterly mercy to rise up inside me. But there wasn't any left. She crossed the threshold, and I shut the door behind them. It clicked shut like a lock on a Memory I'd buried ages ago, but I knew, and from the stiffness in her shoulders as she walked away, that she wasn't done. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of something darker. A few weeks before their visit, I had received a thick envelope from a law firm downtown. Elegant stationery, gold-embossed seal, the kind of thing you never expect to see with your name on it unless something's gone terribly wrong, or unbelievably right. It was neither for me, though. It was for Ayaan. The letter inside explained that Dr. Mustafa Raza, a retired sociology professor and longtime client-turned-family friend from my work in social services, had passed away quietly in hospice. And in his will, he'd named Ayaan as a direct beneficiary. He'd once told me over tea, "That boy of yours is special. Kindness like that doesn't show up in youth anymore. If I ever had a grandson, I'd want him to be just like him." I never imagined he meant it literally. The amount wasn't absurd, no mansions or yachts. But it was life-changing in our world. It covered full tuition for a top-tier university, housing allowance, and a monthly stipend until he turned 25. Enough to give Ayaan the kind of head start Sana and Haris had never dreamed of giving him. I delayed telling Ayaan at first, letting the shock settle in. For once in his life, something beautiful had found him without pain attached. No strings, just a gift for the heart he'd so generously shared with everyone else. But of course, good things never stay hidden for long. Sana came back. Not officially, just enough to hover. She started showing up coincidentally around places she knew we went. A boutique near my therapy office, a bakery Ayaan liked, always pretending to bump into us, always dressed sharply, carrying bags she clearly hadn't paid for in cash. And then one afternoon, she rang the doorbell holding a box of biscuits, like that would excuse her presence. "I'm not here to cause trouble," she said quickly, eyes scanning the hall behind me. "I just wanted to drop off a little something. For Ayaan. No notes, no drama." I stared at the box. Imported, overpriced, performative. Before I could answer, her eyes dropped to the file folder I'd forgotten on the front console. The one from Dr. Raza's lawyer. Peeking out from beneath the papers was the first page of the legal trust document. Her face changed. "What's that?" she asked too casually. "Is that a trust?" I reached slowly and pulled the folder shut, my heart beginning to thud. "Nothing that concerns you." Her lips curved into a smile, half sly, half desperate. "Come on, Ariba. Let's not pretend. We both know there's money involved now. I'm not stupid." "I don't know, Sana," I said, my voice low. 15 years ago, you left your toddler with no food, shoes that didn't fit, and a fabricated diagnosis. I think stupid might be generous." "Harris and I are willing to talk custody," she interrupted too quickly. "If there's money on the table..." My blood boiled. "Custody?" I whispered, stepping closer. "You don't even know this boy anymore. You called him Liam. His name is Ayaan. He has nightmares about being left behind. You want to talk custody now? For a child you traded for a man who now won't even look me in the eyes?" She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. "You think you can come in here and sniff around after he's raised himself into the kind of man you never deserved to know? A trust isn't a golden ticket for freeloaders, Sana. It's a legacy, and you're not part of it." Her smile vanished. "You're being dramatic." "No," I said, voice cold, controlled. "I'm being protective." I moved to the door, holding it open again. A new tradition, it seemed, for sending her away. She hesitated in the doorway. "We just want what he deserves. What we deserve." "No," I whispered. My voice didn't shake. "It's not for you. You forfeited everything the moment you walked out." And this time, the door didn't click shut. It slammed. The invitation came through a text. From Harris's number. "Dinner? Just to talk. Sana wants to make peace. No pressure. 7 p.m. at Almina's. Our treat." I stared at the message for 10 minutes. My thumb hovered over the screen, tempted to delete it just like I had with so many of his calls in the past month. But something held me back. It wasn't closure I was looking for. It was confirmation. I needed to see how far they'd fall when the lights were on them. I needed to witness the unraveling with my own eyes. So I went. I wore the same black kurta I wore the day Haris walked out on me. Not out of sentiment. It just fit me better now. Not tighter or looser, just stronger. When I arrived, they were already seated. Harris picking at the napkin on his lap, Sana sipping lemon water like it was white wine. They both stood when they saw me. The performance had begun. Sana reached for a hug. I moved past it. We sat. For the first few minutes, it was all small talk. Harry's complimented my glow, whatever that meant. Sana asked about my health, my work. It felt like they were reading from a script they barely rehearsed. I waited. Eventually, the mask cracked. It always does. We just thought it was time, she said gently, placing her hand over mine. I stiffened. To make amends. For Ayan and for us. We've done a lot of reflecting. I stayed quiet. Harris cleared his throat. Things weren't easy for us either, you know. We had to start from scratch. We lost so many friends after everything. You lost friends? I repeated, raising an eyebrow. Yes, Sana jumped in. People judged us. You have no idea how hard it's been. 2 failed businesses. People never took us seriously after the scandal. We were practically blacklisted in our circles. The shift was subtle, calculated. Harris leaned in. I'm dealing with some legal issues from the last company, and we have massive debt. Sana's car was repossessed last week. We're thinking of downsizing. Something affordable, maybe a little outside the city. Near you, even. You could help us get back on our feet. There it was. The real reason, not peace. Not redemption. Just desperation in silk sleeves. I didn't blink. Why would I help either of you? Sana's smile sharpened. Because you owe me, I laughed, out loud. Heads turned at nearby tables, but I didn't care. I owe you? Yes, she snapped. I gave you something. 15 years ago, a freedom you could never find on your own. I handed you a child. Someone to love. Someone who made you whole. You dumped your son, I said quietly. You ran away with my husband, Sana. Her voice dropped into something bitter, twisted. I was drowning, and I gave you the only good thing I had. Don't pretend like Ayan didn't save your life too. I saw it for what it was then, her last play. Turn her selfishness into sacrifice. Rewrite history as an act of divine martyrdom. Make me feel guilty for raising a boy she didn't have the courage to raise herself. Harris chimed in. He doesn't even know how much pain we carried. We gave him that stability by disappearing. Don't you dare spin your cowardice as parenting, I cut in, my voice like thunder through a cracked wall. You abandoned him. And now you're crawling back, hoping the boy you threw away turned into a man who will save you. Sana's hands curled into fists. We're still his family. No, I said, shaking my head slowly. We're not the same. Family doesn't leave letters. Family doesn't return for bank statements. Family shows up when no one's watching. Their silence was finally honest. I reached into my bag and pulled something out. The trust document. I laid it on the table for exactly 3 seconds. Enough for the heading to catch Sana's eyes. She lunged toward it instinctively, and I snatched it back. You'll never touch a coin. You'll never share his name. You're not welcome in our world. I stood to leave. Sana hissed. This isn't over, Ariba. No, I said, looking her dead in the eye. But your power is. And I walked away before they could watch me smile. I didn't do it out of suspicion. Not at first. It started as a whisper inside my chest, a question I couldn't silence. Not because I doubted Ayan's place with me. No, that had never wavered. He was mine. In every breath, in every moment of my life that followed the night he was left at my door. But something kept tugging at me. Sana's coldness. Her complete detachment. The way she never once asked about his health, his milestones, his childhood. Most mothers, even broken ones, carry a thread of guilt, but she seemed disconnected. Like she wasn't his mother at all. So I ordered the test. I didn't tell Ayan, not yet. I sent in my sample, then claimed one from him after brushing his toothbrush. I told myself this was just for clarity, closure. What I wasn't prepared for was the silence in the results. Percent match. Not to me, of course. But not to Sana either, and not to Harris. I thought maybe there was a lab error. Maybe I'd entered something wrong. So I redid it, with a better kit, from a verified legal source. And there it was again. Printed in black and white. As undeniable as gravity. No biological connection to either Sana or Harris. My hands trembled as I sat at the kitchen table and read it 5 times. What did this mean? Whose child had I been raising? And what kind of monster lies about something like that? I dug through old records, retraced every pediatrician appointment from those first 2 years. Most doctors were new to Ayan and had no pre-existing knowledge of his health history. All the paperwork Sana left behind had been conveniently vague. No birth certificate, no hospital discharge papers, just a wrinkled note with his birthday scribbled in her handwriting. For years, I'd accepted it because I trusted nothing would ever resurface. Now I knew better. I reached out to a friend from my NGO days. She worked in child welfare. I told her the story, left out names, just dates and facts. She pulled strings, old files, and after weeks of careful digging, she called me. "Ariba," she said slowly, "you're not going to like this." I braced. There was an unregistered infant reported missing from a private hospital. 17 years ago. Abandoned birth mother, complications, no official adoption filed. No one investigated because the system was chaos back then. But the name on the intake form, it matches. I felt dizzy. Like my kitchen had tilted sideways. Sana didn't just abandon a child. She stole him. There was no custody to fight for. No bond to recover. She had taken a child in the fog of someone else's crisis, lied to the world about her role in his life, and dropped him on my doorstep like a worn-out coat she didn't want to wear anymore. I printed the report and the original birth registry findings. Kept them safe. A few days later, she came by again, uninvited. She tried to be soft this time, like a martyr walking barefoot through fire. "I've been thinking," she began. "Maybe we could come to an agreement. Maybe Harris and I could be part of things. Family therapy, gradual visits." I looked her straight in the eyes. I pulled out the folder, opened it just enough for her to see the letterhead. Her face paled instantly. "I know everything," I said quietly. "Your lies, the missing records, the truth of where he really came from." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. "You kidnapped him," I whispered. "And now, he'll never know you existed." It wasn't fury in my voice. It wasn't even venom. It was something colder. Liberation. And in that moment, I saw it crystal clear. Power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just removes you. He waited until I was asleep. I found the envelope on the kitchen table the next morning, propped neatly beside my teacup, like it had always belonged there. My name was scrawled across it in Ayan's handwriting, along with a single word underlined twice in red ink: read. High school graduation was just a few weeks away, and we'd been talking about the next chapter. University, dorms, maybe even travel. He was becoming a man faster than I was ready to admit, and yet something in his eyes the past few days had shifted. He'd been quieter, reflective. I opened the letter with a strange sense of anticipation. Inside were 2 pages, the first folded sealed, the second for me. "Ami, I wanted you to see this before I sent it, because every word in here is only possible because of you. I've thought long and hard about what to say. I wrote this 100 times in my head, deleted it, rewrote it, but I'm ready now. They don't get to take up space in our lives anymore. This is my goodbye to them, the final one." My hands shook slightly as I unfolded the letter addressed to Sana and Horace. There was no anger in his words, no insult, just devastating clarity, the kind that only grows in a heart that's had to carry too much too early. "I was 2 when you left. I don't remember your face. I used to see it in dreams, but I stopped that years ago. You didn't just leave me. You vanished, erased yourself from the story, tried to pretend I never existed until the thought of me came knocking with legal documents and opportunity. You don't know my favorite book, or how I like my eggs, or that I fall asleep better when I hear rain tapping against the window. You don't know that I broke my elbow when I was 8 trying to climb the mango tree near our house. You didn't see me cry when Ami sat beside me at the hospital, for 8 hours trying not to fall apart. She was always there. She is not my aunt. She is my mother, the only one who wanted me when no one else did. You didn't give me to her as a gift or a sacrifice, or any of the excuses you like to pretend were noble. You gave me away because I was inconvenient. Because the truth, the real, ugly truth, is that you took something that never belonged to you, couldn't handle the weight of it, and ran. I forgive you. But that doesn't mean I want you near me. I hope wherever life takes you next, you find honesty, maybe even peace. But don't look for that in me. You lost the chance to know the man I became. And I thank God you did, because he gave me her instead. I didn't cry at first. I just sat there, holding the pages like they were gold leaf, too fragile to fold, too sacred to lose. Then my body caught up and the tears came in waves. The type that don't wrinkle the face or shake the shoulders, but simply fall, warm and grateful and free. He came into the kitchen a few minutes later, already dressed for school, backpack slung over one shoulder and toast in his hand. I left it on her Facebook, he said casually, like he was telling me about homework. There's a Facebook? I blinked. Yeah, she puts up these old pictures of me. Like she was there. I unfollowed her ages ago, but I figured it was time. He poured himself tea like nothing had shifted. But something had. Everything had. Are you okay? He asked, glancing at me. I smiled through the blur in my eyes. You don't owe me anything, Beta. But that letter, it gave me back something I didn't know I lost. He looked at me for a long breath, then walked over, placed a hand on mine. I didn't write it for them, he said gently. I wrote it for us. And just like that, I knew. Some stories don't need revenge. Love finishes the story better. The hall was packed with proud families, caps tossed on seats, and the quiet hum of excitement building like a warm breeze before a summer storm. Parents clutched phones, adjusting focus and brushing invisible wrinkles from their clothes. I sat in the front row, front and center, fingers folded tightly in my lap, heart drumming against my ribs like it was its own applause. Ayan Khan, valedictorian. I still couldn't believe it. The boy I rocked to sleep on a threadbare mattress. The boy who once clung to me, afraid of the dark. The same boy who had asked me just last week, through misty eyes, "Can you be the one who gives me my diploma?" I cried when he asked, not because I was surprised, but because I realized he meant it literally. The school, knowing his story, granted it gladly, so I stood. I took the stage when his name was called. Seconds felt like hours as he approached. Confident, easy smile, robe barely brushing the floor. The audience clapped politely, then rumbled into something louder when he hugged me before taking the rolled paper from my hand. Our moment was soft and private, even in front of hundreds. "I'm proud of you," I whispered in his ear. "I carry you into every room," he whispered back. The applause faded. The line of graduates moved on. Everyone turned back to their programs, their phones, their endless clicking. But my gaze drifted toward the very last row. They're here, Sana and Haris, tucked in the shadows, dressed too formally, too late, trying to remain invisible and desperate to be seen all at once. Sana looked like a woman who hadn't slept in weeks. Hair clipped back too tight, face unfamiliar without its usual vanity. Haris, smaller somehow, sunken eyes, mouth pressed in that defeated way of someone still pretending to be in control. For 1 second, I felt something almost like pity. But it passed, because there they were, watching the life they threw away walk across a stage they will never stand on. They had no cameras raised, no signs, no pride, just silence. 15 years ago, they traded a child for chaos. Today, I watched that same child become a man, honest, beloved, brilliant, without a trace of them in his silhouette. They didn't cheer. They didn't stand. I don't even think they breathed. Later, Ayan would tell me he saw them too. And nothing, he'd said. You were the only one I saw clearly. The ceremony ended. We took photos with old friends, teachers, strangers offering congratulations like candy. But I never looked behind me again. They had already received their punishment. They had to watch him love someone else as his mother. And that punishment? It was permanent. 5 years passed like pages I didn't bother rereading. Ayan was 23, deep into med school, steady and self-assured in a way few men ever become. Our home was quieter now, but full, of books, of Sunday chai, of quiet victories that needed no audience. Then, one late October morning, the phone rang. Haris was gone. A drunken crash on a rainy highway, 2 cars totaled, 1 life lost. I thought I'd feel something when I heard the news. Fury, grief, release, maybe closure. But instead I felt nothing. Like when you remember a dream, but forget how it ends. 3 months later, Sana passed in her sleep. A stroke, they said. No known conditions, no warning. Just silence. The funeral was small. Almost empty. I didn't go. Neither did Ayan. No cousins. No childhood friends. No neighbors bringing food in plastic-wrapped trays. Just ashes, names on paper, and 2 empty chairs at the graveside. Their final audience. Weeks passed. Then came the lawyer. A formal letter. A legal appointment. They had left everything to Ayan. Their condo, half paid off. A car. A joint bank account barely scraping 7 figures. Jewelry, old documents, a few pieces of art I suspected were fake. Not as much as they imagined, but more than most start out with. I handed the envelope to Ayan without a word. He read it quickly, jaw tight, gaze flat. Then placed the letter back in its folder like it hadn't been written at all. "I don't want any of it," he said. "You're sure?" I asked. I wasn't judging, but I needed him to be. He nodded. They didn't build it with love. They built it on abandonment, on lies. It's cursed money, Ami. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Ayan stood, walked to the shredder and fed the papers through, 1 page at a time. Slowly, like a ritual. When he was done, he looked back at me. "We don't accept stolen gifts," he said softly. I never loved him more than I did in that moment. They had spent their lives chasing wealth, image, legacy, but in the end their name meant nothing to the son they gave away, and the woman they tried to destroy? She raised a man too whole to take back broken things. People always expect revenge to be loud. They think it's about screaming matches, courtroom slams, inheritances ripped from selfish hands. But for me, it was never about fire or spectacle. I didn't win by outsmarting them. I won by outlasting them. By loving in all the places they chose to leave empty. Ayan, the boy they threw away, filled my life with more than they ever could have imagined. He made me whole, yes, but more than that. He made me real. Everything I thought I lost, identity, trust, purpose, it came back to me, piece by piece. Every time he smiled, failed, cried, tried, grew. They saw a burden. I saw a beginning. They left him on my doorstep with a fabricated illness and ran toward selfish freedom. And I still wonder, did they ever sit with the hollow ache of what they gave up, or were they too busy playing victims to their own lies? Sana once accused me of stealing the life she should have had. I used to think that was just another delusion, but now I see she wasn't entirely wrong. Because I did take something from her. I took the chance to do it right. I took the nights she could have held him during fever dreams. The first time he tied his shoelaces. The way he clutched his exam results with pride, saying, "I did this for you, Ami." I took the tears he wiped off my cheeks. The way he noticed when I was too tired to smile. And the quiet strength he grew into, not in spite of his past, but because someone stood there long enough for him to bloom. And those moments will never be hers again. They're mine. Not because I claimed them, because I earned them. Now, when the nights are quiet, and there's nothing but the hum of our little home, and the worn creaks of old floorboards, I let myself breathe without the weight of questions. I no longer ask why they did it. I stop wondering if they'd change if given the chance. I already saw who they were, and I chose not to become them. That is what they'll never understand. Love was my revenge, slow, steady, soft I. Loved louder than their betrayal could echo. Didn't need applause. I didn't need justice with a stamp or signature. All I needed was Ayan walking through our front door, exhausted from studying, calling out, "Ami, I'm starving, can you make the yellow doll?" Like nothing ever broke us. And I do. Because that's what victory looks like in my world. Not destruction, but dinner. Not a sword, but a spoon in a pot of lentils, stirred by a woman who loved her way out.